So today we're going to be talking about ratio and proportions. A ratio is just a comparison of two numbers. Usually we think of it by division. We write it a lot of different ways, with the word TO in between, x to y, with a colon in between, x to y, or it can look like a fraction. It has many of the properties of a fraction. X to y is how you can read it. And then a proportion is two ratios that are equal. And the cross products in a proportion will always be equal. So if you take the things diagonally across from each other and multiply them, 5 times 24 is 120, and 8 times 15 is 120. And it's equal, then it is a proportion. If you get something that's not equal, it is not a proportion. And we're going to use this fact in many of our problems. We're going to be finding a missing number in the proportion and use this idea that the cross products are equal. So you will be using your calculator to do a lot of the arithmetic now, but you still need to write the steps. So the cross products would be multiply these two together, 16n equals, take your calculator and multiply 24 times 15. If you do that, you're going to get 360. Now we worked on solving equations, so we can use it to solve this type of problem. What would be the opposite of multiply by 16, divide? This is a step that I'm not going to make you write out. If you want to write it out, that's fine. But if you want to just do this math on the calculator, that's also fine. When you do it on the calculator, you're going to get n equals 22.5. And you would be done. But I do want to see the cross products and the answer. So copy the problem, cross product, answer. So each problem will take at least 3 lines. Now in this one, what's diagonal from the 6? The whole thing, x minus 3. So you do have to use your parentheses. And the other cross product would be 7 times 14, which is 98. So you need to distribute 6x minus 18. That's so important why we learn this stuff, because now we're going to use it. So here we need to add 18 to each side. Get 6x equal 116. Here is the step I will let you leave out if you don't want to put that in. And if you take your calculator and divide, you are going to get a repeating decimal. 19.3 repeating. So make sure you read directions, because I'm not sure what it says on the homework. It says to round, this would be to the nearest tenth, would be 19.3. If it doesn't say to round, I'd write it with my repeating decimal symbol. We kind of have some special ratios, and this one is a ratio of two measurements having different units is what a rate is called. So if you paid any attention on your way to school today, there is a speed limit sign. That's maybe 30 miles per hour. So it has two different units of measure, miles and hours. Or if you buy something at the store and it costs $1 per pound. LB is actually the abbreviation for pound, but I'm not sure all of you know that. So it would be comparing dollars with pounds. So we're going to set up a proportion when we solve these types of problems. And the first ratio that you set up is interchangeable. Doesn't matter which one goes on top, but I want you to put your labels beside it, because that'll make the second part easy then. So 5 pounds of potatoes cost $2.25. That would give us this ratio. If you want to put $2.25 on top over 5 pounds, you can. So the first part doesn't matter, but the second part's what's important, and that's why I want you to label them. When you say how much would 7 pounds cost, well, if you have pounds on top here like we do, you need to put the pounds on top here. X would go here. Now it's just solving like we did before, and when you solve these, you don't use your labels in the middle. So 5 times x would be 5x. If we take 7 times 2.25, we are going to get 15.75. Again, the next step would be to divide by 5. Take your calculator and do that. You're going to get 3.15. We are talking about money, so if it didn't come out even, this one did, but if it didn't, you would round to the nearest cent, which is hundredths place. We do need to put a label on it. So make sure you label them today, or I'll probably count some of them wrong when it's word problems. So $3.15. All right, we got one more to look at. Layman's minivan requires 5 gallons of gas to travel 120 miles. So you can write that as a ratio. 5 gallons, again, put some sort of abbreviation label on it so they'll help you, 120 miles. These labels are more for you. So if you want to just put G and M, you can. Just make sure when you do the final answer that you label it correctly. How much will they need for a 350-mile trip? Well, I have miles on the bottom, so 350 miles would go here. Again, you could have switched the first one around, put 120 on top. It doesn't matter. X would go here. So cross products would be 120x equals 5 times 350 is 1,750. If you divide that, it does not come out even. I rounded it to the nearest hundredth this time. I'm not really sure why, but 14.58, what is going to be the label? Well, I look up here, the X is across from gallons, so I do need to label it gallons. You do either need to write out the word or use a standard abbreviation. G is not really a standard abbreviation for this. So that would be what we would need there.